Welcome everyone to What the Fiction and our Tale of the Nine Tails deep dive. I'm Marie Claire Gould, and with me, as always, for this show is Nat Fox. Hi.
Hello, I'm Nat Fox, host of the Meta Machina podcast, also Ashes for Foxes. Nice to be here again on our third episode.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, we're going to take a break for Halloween weekend, so we won't be back next week. We will be back the week after to cover all the 4 episodes that have come out in that period of time. So we hope to see you back then. I have to say, I loved these 2 episodes, but first we want to do a little bit of a thing. So, we both have beer, much like the characters in the episodes that we have been
It's our
watching.
first date. I'm going to hide the label as product placement is not being, we're not being paid for or sponsored by
Yes.
this.
So I stay inside all day because of COVID.
Oh,
Yay!
me too. I have no social life. Cheers.
Woo! Hmm.
Um, I'm watching 5 dramas at once right now. How about you?
That's a lot. Me too.
Yay! All right.
Mm. I love Tale of the Nine-Tailed.
I absolutely love the show so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Cheers.
This show is like I don't know, like I didn't think it would be made for me as much as we knew it would be made for you.
Yeah, you
Right?
probably had a little bit more resonance around because we've been burnt before by K dramas, especially. So
Oh yeah. But I absolutely am in love with especially the mythical aspects of this show. And I'm excited every week to be like, what are they going to show us next? What sort of
yes,
peek into this mystical world? And it feels like they're trying to be very considerate and genuine and make it real, which I love. I love that,
yeah,
and it's giving me an opportunity to learn more about Korean mythology and folklore, which is also just super enjoyable. And as a person who's very, very new to that area of mythology, I love that it gives me a chance to explore it more.
yeah. Every week is a new lesson for us. Uh, we have mentioned it before on the stream, but we spend quite a few hours not only just rewatching the show for tidbits and different subtitle formats, but also, looking up all of the extraneous information that, feeds into it culturally, mythologically, sociologically. So we're glad that you're here to join us because our work is not in vain.
Yeah, exactly. We're not in this alone, and people appreciate it. And we've had so many great messages every week about, everybody enjoying the show. So thank you to those that come out live to watch us, because then we're just dozens of us,
Dozens of us,
dozens
yes.
of us, but then also who watch or listen to the podcast afterwards. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. But we have a little bit of a new layout that we're going to try out. So we hope that you like this new layout as we start to explore kind of the PowerPoint presentation that Nat always pulls together, which is always awesome. So we're going to just change to that now so you can see it. And yes, we have our Tale of the Nine-Tailed episode 5 and 6. I also waited for you, and 4 Pillars of Destiny.
Great episode titles as always. This has been so like every week I'm like, what's the new episode title? What mystery does it reveal?
I really
Um,
do like that it is chapters and there's always a title associated with it, and the title always makes sense by the end. I'm very
yeah,
happy. Like there's so many things about this show that are just little joys, and even though we had some kind of rough editing things that happened in episode 2, every other episode has been very, very solid, including these 2.
yeah.
With, some kind of like, oh, they kind of went far in episode 5, right?
Yeah, the hurt comfort got pretty dire there for a minute. I think it was I didn't expect to cry again that quickly after, sort
Mm-hmm.
of the Lee Rong, Lee Yeon like face off, but I definitely cried in episode 5 for multiple reasons. And I think, you know, we understand that it's the show itself is upping the stakes, much like many Korean dramas do. So.
And first off, let's just say we were right.
Yes. I had to include this. This is like, cheers to us.
I
for
know.
Being right.
It's like, what? Like, we're, especially with the king, I think the king, like when we covered it was
so
very
hard.
disorienting, and we were not right a lot of the time. We had some guesses, but wow, we've been right on with this show. Yeah, and I'm excited to speculate about this at the end.
Yeah, we're going to get into that at the very end so that anybody who's kind of jumping in doesn't get like the full on theory section. Totally understand that you might want to skip that, because it is like with the king, we had there was a lot of theories going around online, not just from us, but from other people, and we were keeping tabs on them. And fortunately, a lot of them didn't have a lot of payoff or kind of felt like they fell flat. So in this, when we're speculating, we're trying to do more of the broad brush strokes, and like your calling of what, you know, Jia's identity was right on. That was revealed in episode 5 in regards to not only her past, but also in the present in episode 6. And I feel validated because I said that Leon was the most powerful of the mountain gods because he did a whole mountain range, not just a mountain. And I was validated in that too. So I feel very good about that.
Yeah, I think it's actually the mountain range that's listed, like that's mentioned in the Korean national anthem. So it's like a pretty important one
the
too.
Mountain range.
It is the mountain range. Yeah, GI's identity, we're gonna get into that with the deep dives into the episodes. You know, we had some other things, like we knew that they were setting up some stuff, and we also feel like there's a solid Lirong redemption arc happening. We would still need to see it completed, but we're also here for Fox Servant.
Yeah. Gosh, how I set myself up for failure with being really excited about the secondary ship with, you know, obviously the same actress and the King Eternal Monarch, and then, you know, having like 3 minutes of interaction overall. So, but here we're getting it really good, and it seems very well developed. So
it's part of the 5 dramas that I'm watching right now. I'm also watching Startup on Netflix, which is like really good so far. I started watching the 3rd episode today when it came out. But one of the characters, like stepdads, is the evil businessman in this one. So I'm having problems because he looks literally the same, and I'm like, oh,
crossed.
Yeah, you're
the
like,
wires are, yeah.
But I don't think he's a good person either. So maybe he's just the guy that plays the evil businessman.
Yeah, I think he's got that like typecast role because he is he looks professional. So, yeah.
All right, let's get straight into it. Episode 5.
Right in.
I also waited for you, which starts out much like all of these episodes, right where everybody left off, and I have a little bit of a summary just to remind everybody where we were and what we were doing. But Namjia rescued Leong and revealed that was rescued by Leong, and it was revealed that she did in fact have the Vox speed showing in her through her tears. Leong, severely injured from his time in hell, is cared for by Jia. Wounds are bound. She spends the night asleep by his bedside. Gu Shinju, the vet, appears to assist his master, only to discover that Jia has taken his place. The two come to a mutual realization that Shinju is a fox and Jia is the reborn version of Ayam, and that Young was looking for. Uneasy, Shinju let Jia take over. Jia tastes the Leong's mint chocolate ice cream after breakfast and likes it, much to Young's pleasure. The face he makes.
Wow. Yeah. I spent a good minute on that. I love how they just sort of zoom in because they know, that's important to him. He probably would have just dropped her
It's obviously not meant to be if you don't like mint chocolate ice cream.
Yeah.
And, after the sleep, all of his wounds are healed, and he's in somewhat of a rush to spend time with her. We don't really understand that motivation just yet. Meanwhile, evil businessman is raising evil child who has grown up a lot in the last few days. Business man hires a nanny who dies feeding the snake child. Team Bad Fox, Lirong and Yuri, seem to have had time on their hands, and so without a purpose, they seem to torment a watch seller and defend a puppy from a bunch of teenage baseball players. Of course, trigger warning for animal abuse at this moment.
Yes. And unfortunately, we'll get into that.
Yeah. We learn Lirong has a soft spot for puppies, and that's the last thing Lirong gave him before he disappeared was a puppy, and that subsequently died in the mountain burning in ancient times. So this is all his motivation. They punish the teens. Yuri rescues the puppy and brings it to Shinju, the vet, for healing. Jia decides to go to the morgue to help the two girls. They discover the reason for their death, help them. Their father comes to peace. Liang and Jia go for a walk in the park to get to know each other better. And it's revealed that Jia wants nothing more than to have her parents in her future. Briefly, Jia meets the businessman at a production sort of, everybody kind of meets as a meeting in the hallway. And we discover that the evil businessman is actually the president of the broadcast network that she works for. She says, treat us to a meal because my ratings are high, and he agrees. So they do. And then meanwhile, Liang is tormenting the village guardian for information about what happened with the incident on Fox Hill, so that leads them to the Korean village, which is filled with tourists and magical beings in disguise. Liang picks up Jia from her team at the cafe restaurant in the most Twilight moment ever, which we will get into, to take her to the folk village. Upon arrival, he asks her, stay here, and immediately she rents a hanbok and wanders around. He spots her in a crowd, follows after her, and kisses her. There you go.
There you go. That's the full episode. And I've got it bullet pointed here for everybody who
yes,
maybe didn't get it. But, it's a fairly involved episode. It switches settings very, very rapidly. But, overall, it's still pretty comprehensive. And it does slow down, as we said it would, to do more of a character study. Everything that happens in the episode kind of builds up the understanding of these people in a way that I feel is very validating, because, in the first couple episodes, it seemed like the plot was moving faster than we could catch up with, who are they? What are their motivations? What are they really about? So.
Absolutely. Everybody said that this episode was fairly rough on them. And
heavy content, unfortunately.
Heavy content. And, it's kind of hard to be like, yes, but the hurt comfort moments were kind of spread throughout, and the dating, it was almost like they dealt with, like, I still don't know why they needed to go that far, but maybe it was just to break up the dating and the cutesy fluffy moments. I don't know.
It's hard to say. I mean, that's the 1-2 punch whammy of most dramas, is that they'll sort of, you'll go back and forth between, like, really, soft moments and these, like, sort of, like, punch you in the face dramatic things. It's the hurt comfort for the watchers as well, as we've called it. So
yeah,
like, I think it kind of also supports the idea that they're very much a supernatural horror, and it has elements of that, has continued to progress into the elements of that. Violence is kind of just almost some assumed foundation for the story, perpetrated against people, but also, the violence against animals in this case, to kind of, just, yeah, it's complicated. It's not for everybody, but I particularly enjoyed it. And I thought that it has a nice juxtaposition there, we're not just spending a lot of time with two people talking. We're also, getting across certain elements of their lives that they live in.
Absolutely. I think that this episode really shows us a couple of like really important things. And the first thing that I can think of, just because of the focus on the hurt comfort and almost the dating aspects of it, is, are you the person that you were before? And one of the things I've talked about in previous episodes is that reincarnation stories are a meta lens by which to look at being with the same person for an entire lifetime as they go through different phases in their life and almost become a new person. Like, what is it? You become a new person every 7 years. But as you enter a new phase in your life, you almost need to fall in love with that person again. And that's what they're showing through this. She is not only the same person that she was when she was back then, she is also this new person who he is falling in love with. And I've never seen a reincarnation story that has dealt with the aspect of not only kind of having the love of the past, but also dealing with the feelings and the emotions of falling in love with the person again so well. Because like, it's been slow. They've spent their time. This really slowed down from a relationship perspective. So we see those tiny moments of her taking care of him, the mint chocolate, the umbrella scene as an example, where she leaves her umbrella just so she could be under the umbrella. And even though, in the next episode, she's like, I'm just using him. But is she?
No, I think, there's a certain sense that she is sort of this person from the past because, as it's revealed in the flashbacks, she was a princess. She got what she wanted. She wanted the fox. She got it. Awesome. Did it again in this lifetime, but in a very different way, because she's never assumed a sense of her authority comes from herself and her confidence in herself. And that's one of the, interesting and unique aspects of her character, is that while she's kind of calculating and Machiavellian in some ways in terms of, creating this contract with a very old supernatural being, she's pretty much in complete control, despite, her being a kind of an awkward loser too. So
yeah, they're both kind of awkward losers, since the beer clinking at the beginning, just like us. We're awkward losers too. Yeah. Yeah, but the idea that you always need to be falling in love with the person that you love, I think is being done so well in this drama. We also get more of a reveal of the meta plot associated with this, and a little bit more information about how although his job is trying to restore natural order to things, i.e. killing foxes that kill humans or getting rid of bad supernatural beings, there's something wrong with the system itself, like almost in a very good place kind of way. Like the system
the
itself,
administration is messed up. He calls it out. Yeah.
All the rules, like kids being forced to build bricks in hell so that a goblin can continuously knock them over. Like he sees how unfair that is to those children.
Yeah.
And he said something, and it made me really uncomfortable. And were we watching it together, Nat, when I was like, that's not a good thing that he said?
Oh, when he's talking to Talupa?
Yeah, so he says, the king of hell is too old. And I'm like, oh my God, are you going to become the king of hell, you son of a...
Well, yeah, I mean, for foreshadowing wise, he is up against an administration that is unfortunately also very understaffed and, underrepresented. And it seems like it's breaking down, given what's happening between the married couple. Obviously they're not going to have a huge cast for anything in this drama. So we're not expecting to see a lot of figures from that kind of world, except for like the monster of the week and stuff. But, there's that general sense of dissatisfaction with the status quo as it is, because, it's ancient, but it doesn't necessarily represent modern values or situations. Like the children having to go to hell to be reincarnated, well, they, you know, died under violent and horrifying circumstances. You know, there is no heaven in this mythology, obviously. I mean, there is, but like not in the sense that you go
You
to
can
heaven.
go there.
Everybody goes to hell. Everybody goes across the river.
Why is it called hell? It just is.
Yeah, you can call it, you know, hell is
Afterlife.
actually probably, yeah. I like how they translate it as Hades because that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like the underworld is the place where you go to be reborn and be washed, or the river, just in the same sense. So, you know, like, yeah, the system is old and it's broken, but it is what it is. And, you know, is he gonna actually question that and like fight against it? Because I mean, he's already broken out once. So.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like he might take a deal to become the king of hell. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I'm just throwing that out there.
You know, I think that's a really valid theory. I think one of the complaints about you know, what I've been thinking about, like comparing this to Korean Odyssey, which was, you know, obviously has a lot of influence on this as sort of a very similar text, is that, you know, the ending of that, when it was sort of like left on a cliffhanger of a descent into hell to break out the one you love. And, you know, is that what we're going to see here? You know, because they've been heavily implicating somebody's going to die, which means, and they've already been to the underworld. We might see it again. So I think you have a really good idea there.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Did we start speculating already? Oh,
yeah,
God.
I'm sorry. It's
Sorry.
okay.
It's a thing with us.
Yeah, it's okay. I also do want to say, like, evil. The other thing I really noticed about this is that evil doesn't look the way that it's supposed to look. Right.
Yeah.
So we have that with the baseball players specifically, like they're they just look like a bunch of kids, but they're literally doing one of the most, like, it made people physically uncomfortable. Like I had to turn off the show.
I cried.
You know, like I had to walk away and be like, when we rewatched it, I'm like, skip this scene, please.
We did end up skipping those.
Yeah,
because
so
we don't talk about them a lot. It's probably because we were actually effectively upset by them, and I understand. I didn't include any kind of visuals from those at all either. I was more upset by the funeral hall scene, but you know that's.
I was upset by both. Like the funeral hall scene was also triggering for me. So.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this episode was very, very hard, but I think what thematically it was trying to get across, and like, you know, from a story perspective, is to say evil doesn't look the way that you think it does. It can look like a businessman. It can look like a baseball player who's a teenager, or, as we'll get into the speculation, you know, it could be Gia.
You're just gonna drop that bomb right here.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll walk the path.
No, I agree. It's the banality of evil, right? Evil doesn't present itself in a cackling villainous form. Evil is like the everyday things that people do that lack empathy, that prove that, you know, their inability to really register the suffering of others. I mean, that is true evil, right? Is to cause suffering to others. And, you know, retributive in this world is, you know, these spiritual beings that are sort of, you know, bringing justice. One's bringing justice to its own kind, and one is bringing justice to humans that don't have empathy for the natural world. So
exactly. So let's talk about our 3 favorite fangirl moments next. First, we gotta shout out our baby fox love.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love them. I love this so much. We get like 3 minutes an episode, and I'm like, oh my God.
And every minute is
please get
so
married and
perfect.
have baby foxes.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see it. I specifically called out that the dress has pockets because we squealed about that.
Yeah, we're like, this dress has pockets. She pulls out the necklace. I'm like, she's functional. I love her.
She's deadly. She's got a comb that she will just straight up stab you with. I mean, we're not talking about that scene, but like I really did appreciate that, you know, her fighting style is just screaming die, die, die and stabbing people.
With like a really like this sharp little talons. Like they're almost like needle stabs. Yeah, she's vicious and awesome. I love her so much. I love this actress Sits the King, and like, oh my god, she does so well. And then the scene where she's like, I don't have any boundaries. Like, one of the things Nat and I do, because we're doing this all for you. We love you all.
We love you.
We love you all, and we probably wouldn't do this as much if it was just. Oh no, we totally would.
If we understood Korean, we wouldn't do it as much.
Yeah,
but we're not speakers. We decided, obviously that. I mean, Vicky subs are amazing.
So we watch Vicky first. Usually, we get frustrated at some point. And then, mark down like, hey, what was that scene where either there was no subs or the subs were really weird? Mm-hmm. And then we go and find an illegal site to watch it with the fan subs being better. I really hate to admit that, but what we end up finding is that Vicky has like kind of half of the translation, like really solid. And then the fan sub has the other half.
Yeah. I think with fan subs or with direct subs, sometimes you get like a little bit more of that flavor of like what is the intent behind it. Sort of like the perfect example for me in this is when Gia is talking to her boss, who's like, you how could you talk to the president like that? She's like, well, first of all, don't be scared in the Vicky translations, and then on the other translation it's grow a pair, like so like there's a little bit lost. I mean, obviously there's a lot lost in translations from our perspective because we don't fully understand the language, but we like to try and get that nuance and to check our understanding of things. And yeah, it's been very helpful for the past few episodes. And while it is a lot more work, I do think support your fan subbers because they're doing this all for free, both on Viki and on whatever sites that they're posting it to.
And we absolutely love and appreciate that people are willing to let us into this world because we love it so much. Okay, we have to come up with a ship name for Yuri and Shinju. So
we'll let the chat do that.
Okay, but I was gonna propose soft murder babies.
Soft murder. Well, he's not a murder baby though.
I know. Soft babies? No, that's not good.
No, we'll figure one out. Baby foxes for now, I think.
They're baby foxes, yeah.
Yeah, if you hear us referring to baby foxes, it is unfortunately not Lee Wrong. He's kind of a baby, but not really.
No.
It's these two. Because
it's these two.
Act like children. Like legitimately act like children. Because they are so young comparatively to these older world weary foxes. So
world weary foxes, which both they both beat up the Guardian, and then he's like, stupid foxes.
Yeah,
like
I couldn't imagine trying to deal with them at all.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about gratuitous Twilight.
I just had such a moment when I was watching. I was like, what? Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Because like I wasn't really always a Twilight fan. I was a Twilight fan since I read the books, but then I kind of became an anti-fan for a little while, so I never really got into the movies. And then I got into the movies more recently, and then I'm like, oh yeah, everybody talks about the Volvos that they drive. Obviously, they do that in the books, but they really went hard with the movies. So when he's driving a Volvo, and the show is sponsored by Volvo. We're not sponsored by Volvo, by the way. I don't care. But I just had to like call it out because I'm like, oh my God, this is like, they really went hard with like the parallels. I do think it's deliberate. I think that they're like,
it's absolutely like the fight scenes and his hair being this bright, dyed bright red. Like it is entirely deliberate. He walks. So let's just like flash back to this moment because I did talk about it in the summary, but my summary was meh. But okay, so the moment is there's this moment in Twilight, the first book, where and in the movie it's kind of like a combination of these two scenes where Edward decides that he's not going to run away from Bella anymore. He's not going to put up barriers. He's going to be with her. And so they show up at school and he like walks over and it's like, whoa, what's with Edward? And then
Collins never approach other people.
Yeah. And then in the cafeteria, like he walks in and like approaches her and to the surprise of all of her friend group. And it's like a melding of those two scenes. And it happens in this moment, literally with her like production assistant / writer, like her jaw is on the floor. He's like that is the man of my dreams.
The subs are is that CGI or a real human? I think that was such a good line.
And yeah, like they don't quite do the like glossy glaze over Leung like they do in Twilight.
Yeah, it's very understated. He just gets out of his car and walks into the into the coffee bay, because that's also a sponsor.
But yeah, the Volvo specific, we think they maybe chose a larger size of Volvo
just
because
a newer
of the
one. So like it was like the XC30 was Edwards, and this is the XC90. It's a newer model of SUV,
and it's slightly
Volvo.
bigger, so yay. But also Lee Rung drives a Volvo, so it's like the whole family is a bunch of Volvo people.
They're Cullens.
They're Cullens, yeah.
I don't know which Cullen he'd be, unfortunately, because I think he still eats humans, so
he'd be
closest maybe is Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper. He'd be Jasper before he's reformed.
I like it. I can handle it. So
okay, it's cool. So yes, gratuitous Twilight continues, and we are here for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got our first kiss.
The most important part.
Yes.
The first legitimate kiss between these two leads, right? Because we've seen kisses in the past, but they were just tame kisses between him and his first love. This is the first kiss between our leads. And I mean, were you expecting this, Marie Claire? I don't know if I was.
I was not. And the scene is very beautiful. Like he walks up and he's like, there's a lot of symbolism in it. He's trying to find her through the crowds, and he goes through all of this like silk hangings, which we have checked out that Korean folk village, and they do exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go and have your very own moment there if you want.
Yeah, so you can go through them, and you know, it's very much like he's pulling away all of the years to find her, and she's dressed exactly like I am, and it's like, yeah, I would kiss her too. I'd get it. But then she's like, you know, as we'll get into the reaction.
Solid.
Yeah.
But, well, yeah. Before that, I mean, how would you rate this kiss?
It's not very solid in the first episode, but when we get it in the second episode, he's like more like devouring her face. So
okay,
yeah. I just think that they freeze at a weird moment, and then they like zoom back to show and stuff. Like it's very gentle in the first episode, but they have more in the second. So.
Yeah, I've been watching the behind the scenes of that scene, and it really adds a new flavor of ridiculousness to it, because you just have Lee Dong-wook trying to figure out how to like part the drapes, and then correcting the drapes, and then walking up, kissing her, and then going, oh, I did it wrong. It's so cute. So if you they're the behind the scenes of that, I can link that on Twitter, but like it kind of like the magic is sort of just they're just doing a kiss. It doesn't feel passionate because it's instigated by him and she's reacting. At least she closes her eyes. We're very happy about that.
Yeah, if she had kept her eyes open the whole time, it would have been really bad. But the chemistry, I feel like, was earned by that point. But again, there's still so much that's left unsaid because of all of the fact that, you know, she is both these people, and he is in love with both of them, as it seems, right? So
yeah, and mostly the past and the concept of her, and he's only started to be romantically interested in her because he's found out that they're connected, and that kind of definitely puts an interesting spin on their relationship. And I'm glad that she's very even though she is very attracted to him, I think that's clear, she's able to keep her head on her shoulders about it and not, you know, fall into it too bad. So
yeah, absolutely.
We're proud of you, girl.
All right. You ready for episode 6?
First and foremost.
Oh, meta. Let's talk about meta.
I do want to point out that in this episode, everybody names sort of an assumed goal or a lie, or they lie about their intention. Like, I don't think Leon really wants to be human. He might want to have more of a human existence, but, you know, he backtracks a little bit from that.
He wants to be with her. I think that, like, it's like how you say, like, oh, I want to go to school, but the intention is you want to be successful in your area or have that kind of
Make
job.
Money.
Yeah, like, you know, like he wants to be with her, and the only way that he thinks he can be with her is if he was human.
Yeah. I do think and then of course Gia wants to have her parents back, and
Mm-hmm.
later on most of this episode is devoted to this concept where he breaks the watch from that was a precious artifact of this person that he got from the shopkeeper, and he denies wanting to care for the puppy because he doesn't want to have a fixation on something that has a short lifespan. All these things are kind of leading up to him like, I don't have anything that's precious to me, and I'm tired of living, which is
Mm-hmm.
one of the things. And
Yeah, a
you know
partial trigger warning for suicidal ideation, I would say
mhm,
too.
yeah, I should say that as well. But all of these things that are stated or implied are immediately subverted in the next episode, as we'll get into. And I think that you know that's pretty quick, obviously, but it's also just showing how tenuous each of the characters' understanding of themselves is and what they
Mm-hmm.
want. They have, they've either spent their whole lives on these goals where they've just been so one directional blinders that they just haven't really examined their own needs or wants or desires. And we're getting into what do they actually really want.
Mm-hmm.
When you're challenged to make that instantaneous decision, what is it that you choose? So because that's that it's like flipping the coin to make a decision when you already know, like they're getting there. And I was really happy that this episode, despite being sort of traumatic and very very fast paced in terms of lots of stuff happening, really delved into that.
Yep, absolutely. And it handled the set, like I always view these episodes because of how they're released almost like a 2 episode arc, because
Mm-hmm.
it just helps us kind of think. And there's a lot of things that are set up in this episode that pay off in immediately the next episode, to your point. And one of those things is actually like Gia in the past, and as Ayam when she's a child, she's like, you know, belong to me, like become my servant, or because she's a princess. And by the end of the next episode, that actually happens in a way. So it's kind of like they're saying, like, maybe you want something, but it's not going to end up the way you think it's going to be.
Yeah, the price, it
Yeah.
might be a lot different than what you had in mind, or not even knowing what the price is. I don't think that Gia understands fully the implications of the bargain that she made. We'll get
Yeah.
into that later, but yeah.
Yeah. Anything else about episode 5 that you want to point out or
Oh, I'm sure I'll
bring
think
up?
of it later, but I did really enjoy it. Despite having to skip over parts, I do think it had a lot to offer. And I think one of the things that I felt most sentimental about, and I thought was actually really cool, was the Firefly scene.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
understanding that in the past that she was in a psychiatric hospital because of her youth, and she negotiated her way out of that by being very observant, because I mean she's kind of born, like, I don't want to say it, but she's born with a little bit of that super sensory ability that
Mhm.
might be explained by other things. So I mean, no, just
What?
straight up stabs a version of their mom, like so
Like she
she's,
knew that those were not her parents, right?
I
And
know, but still.
she's very sensitive, and she senses these things, indicating more and more that she might be supernatural. And
And she can see ghosts now. I mean,
yeah, and it's laying the groundwork like really well for what we have revealed more clearly in episode 6.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think I have anything else about episode 5 because episode 6 was so cool.
Yeah. Episode 6 was, it's a really interesting difference, right? Like, we go
Yeah.
from this sort of episode where we change settings and we have lots of character interactions and development, to a fixed location episode where you're just sort of delving into this is like the weird, which I really love.
So we're on to episode 6, the 4 pillars of destiny. And before we get into kind of the recap of the episode, let's talk about the Korean folk village.
Yeah, I want to go there now.
Yeah.
It feels like it would feel like the need, like going to a theme park or a Ren Fair combined would really feel like, when I was in Japan, I went to a place called Spain Mura, which is like Spain Mura, which is it's basically a theme park based on Spain. So this is the theme park from the 70s. I think it was built about the same time, but this is based on the Joseon era. So it's supposed to introduce you to traditional like Korean history, and it has a lot to offer. I didn't include a lot in this PowerPoint presentation, but just look it up online. I think it's located in a place called
it's just off the Gangnam train station.
Yes,
apparently.
It's really actually embedded kind of in the city. So
yeah, it's like in a park basically, and there's a lot of like places you could probably just go for a stroll. And where they end up having the fight in the episode is actually the museum portion of it, and that's like the entrance to the museum where she goes and hangs out. So
nice.
Yeah.
So we can go there and we can relive our dreams.
There's a picture of like somebody punishing somebody in that location.
Yes, the same exact like the kind of cross-shaped torture device. I haven't really gotten too much into historical Korean dramas yet, but I've just noticed that there is a lot of torture, a lot more torture than I expected. I mean, of course they are in Chinese too, but like I just can't have an episode without some form of torture. So
yeah. All right. Let's go into the summary of this episode.
So I'll be happy to go over this because it's, and my you'll forgive me for having these bullet points just be like fight, because this is one of those episodes where it sort of like just leans into the tropes of the genre, right? Like I'd half expect there to be like a Hot Springs episode at some point because of the fact that like this is the going to the theme park episode. So the theme park is, themed around sort of this history that the main characters have experienced for themselves. So obviously it begins with the kiss, and of course immediately after this really nice reshoot of the kiss that we get a little bit longer version of, Gia puts the brakes on and she asks Leon if he's thinking about like her past life, and he hesitates. She understands that he was wrapped up in the moment of seeing his lost love again. So she says, your love is past its expiration date, and can you look at me more closely instead? And like she takes initiative and he takes her literally, which is really great because later on he's just staring at her doing that typical drama thing of oh, it's so adorable, but you're not looking at the thing, you're looking at the person. Just so great. Anyway, they go to visit the fortune teller, this great one-off character, who basically gives them their past. Gia was a princess. We already knew that. They go and meet the governor or magistrate, depending on your translation. He is revealed to be a mountain god, just like Leon, but a minor mountain god, not as major as he is. He immediately, it's introduction by combat, which is a very common trope as well. It's like, you got to fight me in order to get the information. Cool, awesome. Leon loves that. Lee Dong-wook's expressions in that whole scene, he just like, hey, are you watching me? I'm doing such a good job. This is nothing.
Aren't I a good boy?
Show off. Guns. Meanwhile, our sweet chaos baby Lee Rong, he is hitched as a palanquin or to go to see the fortune teller to get the tiger's eyebrows. This is what the Jongsun, the village guardian, told him the location of. We don't know what it is, except for apparently it sees past lives. He is told to bring his most precious item in exchange. He's racking his brain, and he's calling his brother because, is that my most precious possession? Leon kicks everyone's butt, including our big boss, the unnamed magistrate governor. He turns out to be his best friend. His original form is a black Asiatic bear, which is also known as a moon bear, which they're so cute. Please look them up
They
online.
have like a little white like collarbone type area that's like a little V, and they're very cute. And he looks like a moon bear. Like his expressions are very like.
Yeah, he's got he just plays into that. And that actor is so amazing. He's been in quite a few. I think we'll go over it in just a second. But he reveals that he had been approached by the mysterious stranger prior to the accident that happened, and that the mysterious stranger is known for having a sinner's mark, or it's basically a criminal from way back when, even before Joseon era, who was branded on their forehead with the West Soul on it. And he's, I mean, obviously that's not visible to us, but it's visible to the spiritual beings. And so they're going to set off to find him. Leon charms his shoe in a very cool little moment. They connect with Li Rong. He calls him back finally, because they know that Li Rong, if they're able to get him to do this, will lead them to the bad guy. They don't know that they're in cahoots already, but good assumption, right? So their meeting back at the fortune tellers goes off the rails when Leon is taking his payment because he is Li Rong's most precious possession. And Li Rong's having a little bit of an existential crisis about this. I think he thought that he hated his brother enough that he didn't care, but he cared.
And he was almost mad that it turned out to be true. It's like,
he was.
Yeah,
he
it was like
about it. He was listening to some sad music in his car.
Like, I don't love you.
I don't love you. It's like, damn it. That was his response. It was so good. And in that moment, Jia is forced with the choice. Do I follow Li Rong to find more about the mystery around my parents, or do I save my fox boyfriend? And obviously makes the decision to save her fox boyfriend. She goes home, tries to find her most prized possession, comes back with that broken merry-go-round from her accident. Doesn't end up being the thing that the fortune teller wants. He looks at her palm and determines her destiny and realizes that she has the fox bead. Not knowing what the fox bead is, she just gives it away.
Yep.
Which has a sort of a very good spiritual karmic thing around it because of the fact that, Leon had gifted her that fox bead. She's exchanging it for his life. I think that's pretty important. But Leon's upset about being trapped in the first place. They eat spicy chicken together, and then she has some really bad dreams, which I have after spicy food too, and too much beer as well. But she dreams of the Imugi child, who we haven't really talked about too much, but obviously has been shown throughout this episode to sort of be like, he's grown rapidly. He's very Omen, Antichrist style, obviously eating the babysitter in the last episode. But in this one, we see him actually bringing a dead sparrow back to life, which we'll get into, which is really cool. But, she's connecting through dreams, Spawn style, with this Imugi child who sees her while they're dreaming.
We're going to talk about that.
Leon is, gone and confronted Chalupa for the 1,000th time. And
what do you see, woman? What do you see?
The Mugi is, of course, still alive, and we see Jia, the scales fully appear on her neck to demonstrate that she is part Imugi, if not the Imugi. We'll have a conversation about that one later. Yeah. So that was a lot. Thanks for everybody for listening to that description of it. But, we just had to get it. Give you some context here for people that forget, because I'm sure people are going to be watching this way after they've, gone through the series, hopefully, and maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Just a shout out to Bones' foot in the background. Yeah.
He's like, I want everybody to see this. This is the way he lies typically, so.
You can just see it like a foot above the cat bed that he's in. It was really cute, and people were like, hey, it's Bones in the chat.
Bones is getting in the stream any way he can. So
all right, let's talk about our moon bear. And we did talk a little bit in the summary about the moon gods or moon bear, magistrate or governor god. And it's really interesting that there's almost like a feudalism aspect to how these areas are broken out. Like, he's literally the governor of Fox Hill and these other areas potentially. But yet when they're kind of talking, and he's eating his little macaron, which I was like, oh my God, he loves macarons. Like, I want to make a moon bear god macaron.
I would just want to eat one now. Thank you.
I learned how to make them after making 6 batches one time.
They're so difficult.
They're
they
so
have
hard.
A very specific temperature and whipping up, You
have to get all of the steps right. But he he's like talking about very day-to-day stuff, and I
He
still
got a home loan.
I still love that about this show. Like, it's like these immortal beings are like, yeah, gotta pay taxes. What you gonna do? Like, I just love it.
Yeah, he's like, everything's pretty good. I mean, I got a loan. I bought a house. I'm kind of tired of all the fairy tale creatures coming and giving me their complaints. But you know, it's a job.
It's a living.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a great cameo by Lee Kyu-hung, who is a most famous probably for his roles in Hi Bye Mama and Prison Playbook. He's also been in quite a few other productions, but those ones are the most recent that have gotten him a lot of praise. So everybody was really excited for this cameo, and I think I would hope that he comes back again. We don't know, but like he's so good.
Well, it seems like they've pulled back a few of the previous kind of godly characters a couple of times. Like we got to see that. I thought the Village Guardian was going to be a one-shot thing, but they're like, no, give us information. Like, yeah. So we might get him back again, since especially Leong and him are friends. Leong might need friends at some point, and this could be a gathered ally that he comes back to, you know, kind of in a Joseph Campbellian kind of way to complete his journey. You know,
we could get like one of those end scenes where they all the Avengers come together kind of situation, but it's all the mountain gods.
They all like walk. Yeah, like is he going to meet all of the mountain gods? That would be really cool.
That would be really cool. Yeah,
like,
it's
then
nice
it's like
to get that.
Collecting his past a little bit, which is pretty awesome as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else to say about our moon bear other than he is, like a bro should be, most concerned about Leong and warns him about Jia.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part, is that like, you know, he's kind of like they're like, we walk two different paths, like, right, I'm here to protect the spiritual creatures that have been abandoned and neglected by the world. You're here to punish us for our transgressions against humanity. You know, they have that kind of antithetical relationship. But he's also like, bro you know, this girl is not what she seems, and by entangling your life with her, you're going to end up, you know, you've already changed your destiny. And he's heard that from Talupa, of course, as well, but he doesn't trust her at all because, you know, she's very
closed-mouthed.
They're antagonistic as well, you know. So having a second person that doesn't have as much stakes within the conversation to say that is really important for him.
And also he cares about him, and he knows that, and they have that relationship still, and it's still there. So
yeah. And they remember the fact that, like, I mean, we haven't really gotten into it, at least not even in the show. We haven't really understood the full ramifications of Leon's decision to, you know, choose a human over his entire kind to the detriment of everybody. Obviously, we've seen the real trauma and pain of that in Li Rong's character.
Yeah,
but
small scale. Yeah.
We haven't seen it with like the full idea of all of these other spirits that were neglected or harmed by him exiting the situation because he was such a powerful being. So
absolutely. And let's move on. So because we have enter fortune teller, who is hilarious, we actually deal with a lot of divination. So from a mythic perspective and, you know, cultural perspective, we're going to just talk briefly about what this all kind of means, just to give you some context. Again, it's two white girls.
Yep,
talking about
white girls. But I'm one of your resident, like, I wouldn't really call myself a witch, but I dabble in a lot of divination stuff. I've been reading tarot for like, oh God, too many years. I can't actually put a number on it without dating myself horribly. But you know, like I'm particularly interested in, you know, East Asian divination methods, because our Western divination methods actually are sourced mostly from East Asian. Palmistry or hand reading is actually one of the most important examples of that. It's not a Western based art. It is definitely, you know, baked into Chinese astrology or you know, all these other kind of mythic worldviews that are in the East, including from India as well. I should mention that a lot of stuff was like India, China, and then it, you know, spread out, or you know, so You're not going to get like a full lesson here from me. I'm not smart. And I was reading this stuff at like late night. So I'm going to just try to give it to you as it is. I wanted to give a shout out for blind oracles because they're just such a universal concept in fiction. I did do the research to see if there's a particular blind god in this mythology. I did not find any sources that, supported him.
We might find out more with more information. We'll let you know if we do discover who this guy is. Yeah.
It just could be kind of the essence of the fortune teller, and they're credited as just a fortune teller in the credits.
Yeah, too, blind fortune tellers are just like considered to be better.
Yeah,
like in general. Yeah.
So the actual episode title is The Four Pillars of Destiny, and what this refers to is what we call the Bazi. Right? So if you're not familiar with Bazi, like whenever you watch a historical or even a modern day drama where they're like, okay, you guys are going to get married. We're going to take your birth information and we're going to take it to get, examined for your compatibility, right? Or the auspicious day that you're going to be married or anything like that. Like that's the four pillars is basically the hour, day, month, and year of your birth and how that relates to the Chinese zodiac. And so Bazi actually means 8 characters. So the four time points and then the 4 corresponding astrological rulers of that. In addition to that, there's also the influence, of course, of the elements and that kind of stuff. I will get a little bit more detailed into it in the next one. I will also just shout out that we are going to talk a little bit about palmistry as well, which I have not delved enough into. But hopefully today, if you have a little bit of information, you can go and look up the stuff. I looked up my Bazi, and it's very interesting to look up, what my fortune is that way. They have calculators online, highly recommend it. Also, hopefully we can look at your palm and see. I learned some sad things about myself just researching this. So, heart lines sucks, which is awful.
Okay. Just briefly, water and fire may fight. These are all this is just the shout out to what it looks like when you actually look it up. And
okay, this is important. This is the direct quote as far as the translation goes.
Oh, this was the fortune teller on her hand. Yeah.
So
sorry.
My math might be dubious. I want to be called out on this. Please feel free to @ me on Twitter. I don't usually say this. I usually tell people just to leave me alone. But in this case, if you can tell me what Jia's actual exact birth date is, and hopefully also the hour of her birth, which I don't think is ever specified, my understanding from this episode is that the accident happened 21 years ago on March 3rd, and then that was her birth date. So I kind of went back and just chose the ox hour because that's when the baby was born.
Yeah, fair. Good. I like this logic. This is good. Yeah.
My logic, and it can be completely unsound. But what I found was that her Bazi is like, the thing that he says, water and fire may fight and the earth may be dark, but metal shall rule over it. Well, if you put that time exactly 3 a.m. March 3rd, 1989, assuming that's her birth year. It could be 1990. My math is but 1990 was not the year of the Earth Snake, Marie Claire. The Earth Snake, which, as has been proven, is one of the most important fundamental things.
And we're going to get into the bragging rights speculation area about her in a moment, but she's a freaking Earth Snake.
Yes. So I feel like if this is not right, then I might be wrong. But every writer, when they're building their characters, goes, what day were you born? What's your blood type if you're writing in certain ways? And and I feel like the writers were like, okay, well, we can and they've been putting so much emphasis on her age.
Yeah. And they told her birthday, so it's all in the textual evidence. They would use it. These writers are smart enough, and they've been just using all of the pieces. There's Chekhov's guns, and they're firing them off all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
I think this is right to assume.
Good. Okay. I'm not going to get too much more, I'm not going to do any more white girl explanation of, Chinese astrology or, its influences within the text of people's horoscopes and that kind of thing. I do suggest looking it up online though, because it's so fascinating. It is so interesting. And it really does have a lot of cultural relevance because, it's still used today by people,
Yeah.
and it's it's valid. I'm into my own astrology. I mean, I'm a double Scorpio. I love mystery stuff, right?
And
So
that's where like this show sometimes feels like the Da Vinci Code, like they're pulling things from like religion and
oh
history
yeah.
and making them real, you know, and connected. Like I think it's just smart because then it feels more embedded in the now and real.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, it's sort of like, it's very useful for people that have a very cursory understanding of this stuff to be able to go, I got that reference. And, even for me, who's completely outside of things, it was really, I was like, oh, I'm so excited that this is what they're doing. Because if you're going to set a mystery, sometimes doing these like little things is just so fun, and it keeps people interested. So, including me, I'm very excited about it.
And like people have been very interested in this show. We found out that like there's a lot of recaps and Tumblr posts and
oh yeah,
things that are devoted to this show. So I'm really happy that people are also coming along for the ride.
Yeah, I hope more people get into. I think some people, like a lot of experienced drama watchers, have sort of a waiting period when it comes to dramas. Like, I'm not going to get into it immediately. I'm going to wait a few episodes and then see if I feel comfortable enough to drop in. Some people even just wait till the ending, especially with like long-term Chinese dramas where it's like, if the ending just sucks,
I'm not going to invest.
Nobody wants to watch it. But also the schedule on those is much quicker, right? You're getting 2 episodes a day, 3 times a week. This one, we're 2 episodes for, I understand, like, hopefully at the halfway point, a lot more people are actually kind of dropping in and getting more excited about it. And that's what I've noticed on the forums, on Tumblr and other things, is that, people are allowing themselves a little bit of trust.
Yeah.
Which is very hard for us as drama watchers.
Yeah.
We just trust issues.
Just the fact that they mentioned Twilight so many times during production has me like sold.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about palmistry and how it relates to Gia and the moment that her destiny changed.
Yes,
I love this moment.
So
and you and I were watching this together because we're like, wait, this is what it means. Yay!
Yeah. I have not very much knowledge on palmistry, but and one of the things that we did notice is that, like I going back and screenshotting this, is they really went hard in terms of making sure that heart line. I don't really know. I have to look at pictures of Joboa to see if she's like actually got it or not. But they either like CGI erased her heart line, or she might be one of the people. There's a small percentage of the population that has a combined head and a heart line. It's called the simian crease. So it's like, if you have that, it's pretty normal. If you don't have a heart line. In this case, she doesn't have a heart line. As soon as she gives away her fox speed, she gains a heart line. And a heart line is specific to our emotional journeys as human beings.
And you notice like it's kind of broken.
Yeah, she could have a broken heart line. So I did include like this kind of funny little chart here. It's really hard to see on the PowerPoint, but I'm happy to send it. It's important to note that broken heart lines sometimes mean a couple things, but I will just read you the description here so that we can all revel in the possibilities if this is the case. If you don't have a heart line, what that usually indicates is that you are so self-centered and narrow-minded in your goal that you don't take time to develop a loving relationship, whether it be friendship, platonic, or a marriage partnership. So like your goals are so much more against you having that kind of emotion development. That's a short love line. Because I'm looking at what she had originally, and I would say that that's that little line on the side of her palm there
was her heart line.
Where's her heart line?
Yeah.
Not her marriage line. There's also a marriage line that's kind of in the same area, but it's usually a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So she had a very short heart line. Now she has a broken heart line. So that would mean that in her past, she had a failed relationship or marriage that set her up for a lot of suffering. But because she went through that suffering, she is now unable to have true love.
So again, this is speculation based on what they're giving us textually in the show, but
it might not be that deep. It might be just like, that's just the part of her heartline that we could CGI off, or she just actually doesn't really have that big of a heartline in real life. Who knows? I'll have to take more pictures, look more pictures, like enhance on Joboa.
And yeah, like if you're interested, like it's actually quite common. Like all of BTS has shown their palms, and their palms have been analyzed, and like having an M on your hand is a monkey's mark in Korea, and that means that you're going to be successful, or
There's lots of different little symbols,
Yeah.
like triangles, squares, tridents. These are all important to what I would specifically call the Chinese art of palmistry, because that is very much born from an understanding, and it relates to Chinese astrology, to, of course, all the other things. Everything is interconnected. When we talk about like a bagua, like from feng shui, or from your Chinese horoscope, all these things, they all stack up on each other very nicely and are interconnected in ways that it would be impossible to cover in this. But I really, really recommend researching and looking into, because it is such a, it's just such an elegant and like sophisticated way of viewing kind of the world from an occult perspective, right?
Yep, absolutely. All right, are you ready, Nat?
Yeah, always.
Speculation time! Boop, 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 boop.
Marie Claire, what do you think this picture that I chose for our PowerPoint is?
Is it the Dragon King's daughter?
Yes. I don't think it's specifically of the Dragon King's daughter. There's very few art online of that specific thing. But you know the myth a little bit, or at least the folktale. Can you explain it, like what it is?
Yeah, so there's kind of a war that happens between two of the Dragon Kings, the East and the West Sea. And to resolve the war, the Dragon King's daughter is married off to the son of one of the other kings. And yeah, that's as far as I know right now.
I think then that there's a whole thing about like she's abused or neglected by
and then she goes back home to dad, basically. Yeah.
So this is where, and to be fair, like this myth is actually pretty it's pretty mimetically it's very old, and it actually has many different versions. In Japan has very famous one, China and Korea. So when we're referring to this myth, it's more of like the overarching kind of idea of it versus the actual one legitimate version of it or whatever. We think that, just like many other things in the show, nothing has to be specific. It's taking these flavors or impressions or even the aesthetics of these mythologies and folklore and creating them in sort of this more human and realizable way. So
so maybe we'll just lay out what is happening from a meta perspective that we can see, because it's been very clear. We know Jia in the past, as was revealed in episode 5, is the daughter, i.e. a princess, the 7th daughter, and 7 is a very important number in almost everything universally. The 7th daughter of the king, who it is revealed is not a good king. The king, there's screams from the palace, and it is revealed, and I think we can assume at that point that the king was actually some sort of a Mugi. I think she was younger then. I don't think that she had reached kind of the age of revealing that she also had potentially any of these things associated with her.
She just had the bloodline specifically. And it was very clear, at least in one of the versions of subs that I watched, that he was a creature disguised as a king. Or at least that's what kind of came out of that reign, was that. And one of the interesting things too with the Dragon King's daughter mythos or folklore is the idea that you can only kill a dragon with an arrow well placed. So this feeds into, why are we seeing her with this bow and arrow and being taught by Leon? Well, that is central to the myth as well. The dragon can only be killed that way. So, yeah.
And then, in episode 6, it continues on. Like we have Moon Bear best friend, saying, I've heard about her. It's not going to work out. She has the king's scales. Like, she has his blood. even though she's been reborn, her essence is Imugi. She is a snake.
That's why there's auspicious circumstances or inauspicious circumstances around her birth, like her parents visiting the island. You know, all these things are adding up to her origins being extremely steeped in the supernatural, almost like it was an invocation, right? Not necessarily just a natural situation. No, she was brought into this world much like the child was recently.
Purposefully, and people are aware of her existence, and the only thing preventing her from becoming full, monster supernatural has been this fox speed that was gifted to her so long ago. And again, we've talked about in previous episodes how we think she was reborn multiple times, but she just doesn't remember, and he wasn't aware, and he didn't, like, she maybe didn't have that compassionate emotion enough to show the fox speed in that moment, like with the tear. But we think that all of those past versions of herself that we saw were her. So the fox speed has been preventing her from becoming her true self, which is so heroine's journey. Like, it is so good. It is incredibly good. And Nat and I are like, okay, let's just go to the next slide. Will the real Imugi please stand up? We think Jia is going to be the big bad.
Yeah, so there's just to give a shout out to everybody on the forums on Twitter and Tumblr that is talking about this. The current driving theory, based on some of the the conversations between the shaman and Leon or Lirong back in episode 3, is what we're going to call the Horcrux theory from now on, right?
Okay.
The Horcrux theory being that the Dragon King, or the Imugi, I should say, is split spiritually between these two people. Obviously, the child is an extension of Jia in the sense that it was born from her blood, brought into the world based on her sacrifice from her body. And that, but when people will talk about this, oftentimes what they're doing is sort of putting this child as kind of the Voldemort figure that is going to be the true villain of the story. When me and Marie Claire are much on the board of the theory that Jia is the villain. Yeah. Literally. I mean, she becomes possessed to a certain point. That episode where she grabs him by the throat, where, she's like, you killed me, I'm coming back for you. You kind of think that it's like a separate thing, but we've come to terms that we don't think it's separate.
Yeah, I think that they might go dark with her, and I'm kind of excited about it because I don't think I've ever seen a drama like make a true enemies to lovers type scenario like this, because it really is. Snakes and foxes in mythology do not get along.
No, they're one of like the 5 spiritual animals, and there's like porcupines and weasels, something else, but like they're and there's no actual like folklore or mythology around snakes and foxes, but kind of impressionistically wise, even though they're sort of considered natural enemies within the mythology itself, right?
And like, we might be totally wrong, and Kid might grow up and become hot and like evil, and and evil businessman is doing his thing, and Lee Wrong and like Team Evil is assembling. But
Dark Union is what we called it, right?
Yeah, like I'm like, he's gonna want to be with her, like like my Dark Union theory stuff that I've gone into previously, whereas like the bad guy wants something from the heroine, and it's usually power related. But I'm getting this impression that it's something about her, right? And they're playing into that with, hey, she's born in the year of the snake. We hope we're right about that. She has all of these traits that are natural about her. She's very smart. She's very observant. She's very keen. She has all of these things about her, and she doesn't listen to anybody else. She thinks that she's in charge, and she always has been, so giving her orders means that she's going to kind of do the opposite. There's these traits that are coming out that are very snake-like, and I just feel like how much they've been paying off all of the things in the show to this point. They know what they're doing, and this is indicating something. And I'm kind of like, I'm really invested in this idea that it could be more complicated than just, you know, boy turns evil and then they have to fight boy.
Yeah, I don't like that because it doesn't have inherent conflict. Like part of the complaints, and not that I read a lot of them, I don't really even care. You know, when it comes to chemistry and dramas especially, you know, these people had a you know, maybe a mildly antagonistic relationship at the beginning, but now they're pretty peachy. What we need to do is up the stakes. We need to change that conflict in order to buy into the romance. It doesn't really, I mean, it's not like it will fall flat or not work if they continue to develop their relationship.
It'll just bring it to the next level if they do actually have this, like, ooh, do I kill you? Do I love you? And it's going to be, you know, Leon going through all of these phases, and maybe the afterlife world is like,
has to die.
One of you has to die. Like, they're foreshadowing it potentially, right? And the world afterlife office is like, Leon, you have to go freaking kill her. This is going to end in tragedy because she's a monster. And also, like, there's some cool dynamic with the fact that they've already set up her character to be sympathetic and empathetic to abandoned children. Because probably, you know, all of her stuff in the past, too, she relates to it. But, like, she's not going to want to kill a kid, especially if he stays as a kid. Like, if he doesn't grow up any further and he stays as a kid, like, she might end up working with him. And there's all this cool stuff that they can do with that, and it creates this beautiful conflict for them to work through.
Because, like, you know, Leon thinks he's in charge of everything and he has control over everything. The real rug under his feet would be, no, you are at odds and you are threatening the life and livelihood of this person that you purport to love. Like, oh yeah, that would be that would be, for me, that would be extremely validating from the perspective of the fact that, like, we have so many dramas where, like, you know, the especially supernatural dramas where you get this impression of this kind of powerlessness that's baked into the female heroine sort of not having the same kind of level, right? The guy is like, it's not like he's lowering himself or belittling himself. It's not like that. It's more like, well, you know, you've lived for thousands of years and this person's just a mere mortal. Now, if she's ascended into this, you know, kind of spiritual figure herself as, you know, an antithetical to his existence and to his understanding of her, that creates so many more opportunities for her to, you know, express her control or, you know, power over this entire thing. And, you know, we kind of wanted that a little bit more with stuff like, even Star Wars is a great example. Rey Palpatine, amazing concept if it was realized in a way that actually made sense. Everybody gravitated towards Dark Rey because women are very drawn to
that dark power
and characters that that express, you know, sort of the innate darkness within us. You know, like it's the otherization, it's the weird, it's the things that make us feel like, you know, that is the full spectrum of humanity, but we're often denied it in stories because we're, you know, presented as the good one and the, you know, perfect little girl.
And to explore that darkness and then be able to understand it and have it exist within ourselves and also still get the guy, like, ooh, yeah, that's a female power fantasy right there.
That is
right. Have power, have darkness, understand those things, and still be able to be valued and worthy of love.
And, you know, the fully understanding that doesn't actually, like, the darkness doesn't immediately connote evil, right? Like, one of the best things about, like, this child bringing a sparrow back to life is that, like, Li Dong said, like, people who love animals are not truly evil, you know? If you have that inherent love for small creatures that are not yourself, you know, like that need to nurture and take care of something that is less powerful than you, then that is like a sign that you are not particularly, you know, evil incarnate. Because I think that, you know, you think that when he kills the babysitter, but, you know, the babysitter's response to him was really, I don't know, probably shouldn't have screamed at a child who just has a disability, like, oh my God. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say is that like we assume based on sort of the framing and aesthetic of this person that they are evil, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're just protecting themselves or their own, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the true evil is whatever is awakening within Gia.
I mean, yeah, and I really hope they explore it. I think it would be fascinating. I won't be disappointed if they don't, because I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
be a really good story. I just think that there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of things that they're laying the groundwork for, that they have been picking up other things and showing other things and paying off other things, that it makes sense that they might pay off this, that she's got darkness in her, she's smart, she is actually a villainess in some way.
Yeah, I would really like to see it.
Yeah.
I
I do have some speculation about I love this next slide. In the underworld, where you give briefings using PowerPoints and you talk about pulling out my tongue. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait. That was just like a filler because I just like didn't know where to put it. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's great. Yeah, I just love that. I'm subjecting you to a PowerPoint. I am so sorry, but also that
You get to see our lovely faces.
yeah, that this world is it. You know, we don't question sometimes the architecture of it or why we do the things that we do. We just do them because it's ritual or
Mm-hmm.
uh,
It's the way it's always been.
always
So,
yeah.
you know, and like that's one of the things that I've been thinking about recently, especially with the world, that there's a false belief in inevitability
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that we have no control to change inevitability or the way things have always been. And we
Yeah.
absolutely do. We absolutely do. As humans, it is proven over and over and over and over and again. But what it takes is genuine conversations about what the history actually is, right? So why these things exist
Mm-hmm.
in hell, and then the, you know, goal and the power and the drive to create something new and to see a different future.
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about cause and effect, right? When we talk about like, I
They
mean,
they
we
do it
also,
in the show.
they do in the show. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like the idea that, you know, there is nothing that doesn't cause a reaction in the world. You know, your actions influence your reality and vice versa. And so, like, the idea that you have full control over it is a lie. You know, like there is, wait, I mean, I believe in free will, but I also believe in sort of the concept of, you know, manifestation in regards to like, you know, you have to understand why you're motivated to do these things in order for you to understand, you know, how they'll come back to you from other people's reactions to them. This is a very abstract way of explaining it. I'm not very good with philosophy, as you can see. I
It's
believe
okay.
in woo-woo. But, you know, in the context of this universe,
Yeah.
they, you know, Leon's gotten away with thinking that, you know, everything will be fine. Especially, we haven't really talked about it, but like he's like, I'm going to make sure that you forget who I am.
Oh
and
yeah,
that you
he's
live
gonna pull a
human
full
life.
freaking Edward in Eclipse, like
Yeah.
yeet himself out of her life so that she can have a full life. Like he's literally making plans to leave her even though he is with her. Like,
Yeah.
oh
He's like, your
man.
lifespan is short, mine is long. I'm just gonna have to yeah, leave you to ride a motorbike with a werewolf. No, I don't. You know, like you get the idea. But
Yeah.
like, he you know, it's basically, yeah, it's taking away control from him and putting it into her realm where she's able to make decisions for herself. And also, you know, like you said, it's going to be complicated. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be something where, you know, her destiny, she's already kind of moved developmentally past being stuck on her parents. I think her parents were what were keeping her from in that child stage of development
Without a
into adolescence.
heartline.
Huh?
Without a heartline.
Yeah, without a heartline, into adolescence where she's just beginning to understand her own emotionality, spirituality, and her, you know, burgeoning desire for like The
hot
redheaded
nine-tailed fox that's right there eating mint chocolate.
Yeah, but
Like with a
adulthood for
spoon.
Gia and adulthood on the journey. We talked about the heroine's journey a million times, but you have to go through the dark woods, and you have to meet the witch. You have to really meet the witch in the sense that you take her advice and you absorb her power and her knowledge in order to accomplish your goals. That's where she's going, and the period of trial of separation that happens not only in like general fiction and the heroine's journey and everything like that, but also especially in K-dramas. We're talking about like we're approaching the middle part of this drama. So what will happen is a natural separation and conflict that will be resolved in the last 3/4 of it, right?
Yeah, I usually call this like lady in exile. Like she goes away. She is outside of his sphere of influence, and it's really an important developmental step for the character so that she can actually understand who she is without the main male lead in the view. It happens like in almost every drama.
Every single one, I swear to God. And it happens in different ways, right? Contemporary dramas, it'll be, we broke up for a little while like after our
Hana Yori Dango / Meteor Garden or Boys Over Flowers. She goes to her parents' village that they're staying in and hides away and agrees with his mom that yes, she should be away from him. And then she's brought back. Like it's part of the development of that character that she needs to go through a separation.
Yeah, it's returning to what is comfortable after an initial state of conflict that you're not used to because you've been in this sort of this like arrested development stage of life, like she has been, right? Like, something horrifying is going to happen. She's going to pull back and go like, maybe I don't want to have my feet in this world, but you can never go home again. That's the whole point of these stories, is that when you return home, the reason it's changed is not because home has changed, is because you personally have changed and developed as a person, completely separate. And, you go back and you see things in a different way. But she will go through suffering because he's already suffered quite a bit, but like not in the way that he should suffer, which is he needs to realize that she's her own person and that he cannot control her fate.
I think that that's going to happen, especially with a potentially Mugi reveal. Like she is the monster guy. Like she's going to be her own,
And it's so baked into the past that we haven't seen. We've got some images in the preview of them, fighting with swords. And I don't know if he's training her or if that's just a moment between them. Do you want to talk about how like we have an idea of what might have happened back then? Like your theory about what happened?
So I kind of have this theory that like, because especially how he words the past stuff, like he said, that's where my recollection usually ends. So he's like in active denial about what happened. I think there was some sort of confrontation with the Imugi. He went to go and kill the Imugi for her, and she stepped in the way to protect the Imugi, probably after some sort of reveal that she is also an Imugi, and so finally understood the monstrous nature of herself and that dark power, and then she was actually killed by him.
God, I would love that drama.
I get that impression because of what they're hiding and how they're hiding it, and what they've revealed.
And sort of like I mean, she died in his arms. They're he
blames the Imugi, but it's like, but projection. Maybe she didn't get a chance to tell you the whole thing before you stabbed her by accident,
or she was possessed.
Maybe like we might get again the Horcrux stuff type,
which is perfectly valid. It's a little bit cheap, but but it's not cheap if it has a personal like dimension in her character, right? Like she's inseparable spiritually from this thing, right?
Like maybe like she as his daughter was actually just a piece of the Imugi to begin with.
She has his power.
Yeah, she has your power. Yeah. I mean, I would be okay with that if it was done well.
Yeah, me too. Like, I have no complaints. It's a drama. It's not that, like, there's no stakes here. It's mostly just having fun. I do like the idea that, there is no differentiation between the Gia that is Gia and the Gia that is Imugi. She is an Imugi. You know, I think that that's important to reflect upon as something that we desire to see, you know, because again, a lot of it has to do with agency, right? If she is possessed by an Imugi where it's acting outside of her interest or influence, then she has no agency.
Yeah, it's taking away her agency. But if she has that power because she was born with it and she always had it, and even when he loved her in the past, she had it, it gives her something fundamental about her character that he has to, because like part of love, part of love is like understanding the darkness of the other person that you love and learning to love that too, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than not liking the same ice cream flavors.
Yeah. Which he totally would have been like, if she didn't.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, that's where he experiences growth, because she's always been this ideal creature in his mind. And now she's not going to be ideal, and she never was.
Yeah.
Right? Can you still love the person even with all of their darkness, in the ugliness and in the darkness, and in, you know, with all of their baggage?
That is good storytelling, my friends. Yes. If you ever want to write a romance or write a TV show or whatever, all you need to do is go back to that understanding.
That's mint chocolate ice cream.
Yes. That makes life sweeter.
Oh, sure. Yes. Oh, okay. I do want to bring up one. It's minor because we get like 3 minutes an episode with them, but our two secondary leads are baby fox lovers. I think because of the owed debt to Li Rong, Yuri, our murder girl, murder baby, will be struck and have to make a very hard decision, and may decide to protect Vet Boy from Li Rong.
Yes.
Because of her emotions for him, even though she owes Li Rong a debt. And we might see some sort of retribution or sacrifice or thing she has to pay for that.
I agree. Yeah, I really hope she doesn't become like the sacrificial lamb. Because
I want everybody to live. I love them all so much.
We know that, you know, sometimes dramas really need to just kill your darlings, is what I would say. So I think she will side with, I mean, she'll find some portion of Li Rong's character that she doesn't mesh with, and she will in a moment and side with
Ooh, you went robot-y.
You know, she's understanding.
Oh, can you repeat that? You went robot-y.
Can you hear me now?
You're kind of a robot.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to move on the slides and just mention briefly before we end and we talk about the relationship chart. You know, we're going to be taking next weekend off. We expect a lot from a next 4 episodes perspective: conflict, separation, more foxes, maybe a snake, higher stakes and snakes, stakes and snakes, and
stakes and snakes,
and we're gonna get into that all in November 7th. So don't come back right away. But we will be back November 7th to talk about those episodes. There's this really funny moment.
My birthday. I'm going to age.
Yes, it's your birthday, so you're taking that weekend off. I absolutely love this one moment, and it's very reflective of the show in general. And what I love about the relationship between Li Rong and Leon is that they're just jerks to each other in the most adorable way, which is like he takes off his shoes, he does the kind of magical trick so that Li Rong will lead, them to the bad guy, but because his feet are off, he literally puts his feet in Li Rong's face, like smell my feet, like a jerk, like a jerk sibling, and like siblings are jerks to each other. Yeah.
But they haven't had an opportunity to be kids together, so it's nice.
Oh, you're not a robot anymore.
Oh, good.
I love it. All right, let's just briefly get where we're at with a relationship chart. There is some adding stuff, like the husband of the afterlife office wants a divorce.
I should have included a broken heart symbol for them because I think that they're on their way out, which is, it's progressive. Like, he's been living in fear for his entire relationship because she's the sister of the king of hell. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that we get some more with them. I really like the Snail Bride talking to him and laughing at his his marital troubles and his outbursts. It was so good.
We also get more of a development with Li Rong and Leong with the "You're my most precious thing, Nat."
I will never trade you for a pair of glasses, that's for sure.
Oh, we didn't even talk about what those might be.
The tiger's eyebrows.
Yeah.
They see past lives. I think that's going to be really pivotal to like what you said. She was reborn several times, and she might have recognized him if she was reborn. Like even with the fox speed, she wouldn't become an Amugi. Maybe she had some memory and she rejected him because she didn't want to have him in her life anymore. Like maybe she wanted to be left alone. Maybe she was crying on that boat because she was like, she didn't speak. I don't think she was allowed to. And I think that she did look at him with love, but she also sort of looked at him like, here we go again. Maybe in every lifetime you'll curse me, like he might be an unwanted influence from the perspective of, she asked for him, but then maybe she didn't end up wanting him at the end. So I think that would be very good. I don't like super sickly sweet, like, oh, we both loved each other, everything was great until, we tried to kill her dad. No, we need to have some conflict.
Well, like, and that's where, like, I think when we were watching it, I said something like, look at that look in his eyes. She doesn't want to say yes, that's why she's crying, but she says yes because of the look in his eyes. And like she's willing to give him a second chance. But I honestly think that there's reasons why they're laying all this groundwork emotionally. There's so much that I hope pays off. And I would certainly appreciate it if they did it successfully, just for me personally, just as a favor to me.
Just for me personally.
Yeah.
No expectations, but a lot of praise if they can pull this off in a meaningful and satisfying way. Like,
so is there anything else, like, from a perspective of the episodes, speculation that we missed, any kind of things, themes, myths, all this stuff?
I do think, like you said, in terms of that pivotal change in conflict and the relationships and people, Li Rong is already going through, his sort of pseudo redemption arc at this point, where he's sort of recognizing that he does have things that he appreciates and loves, like his brother. But he's also obviously very antagonistic to him. He wants his brother to kill him because either he can't do it himself or he is tired of life. We don't really have the full idea of
I don't think that he likes owing his life to evil businessman baby Razor.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We thought we would get some more of that historicity in these episodes, but it's not happened yet. It will happen later on, just like we'll see the circumstances of Jiao's death. We'll see we'll get a flashback again next week with them sword fighting. We'll have more cryptic stuff around if one of you will live and one of you will die, blah 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 blah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the only reason they have prophecies in Asian dramas is so you can break them. So like, it's fine.
Yeah, we're not worried about that. I think what the most thing I want to see is Li Rong and Jia. Actually, I would like to see that. I would like to see
more of them together.
Yeah, because they're already,
Are we gonna get like a moment of secondary love interest? Like
Well, there's a
like
there's a
no
detective that hasn't really featured right now that might be, but I hope not. I hope it's Lee Wrong.
yeah, like when
She's the Amugi.
yeah, like when the Amugi comes out, like will he be like, he wants to kill you too?
Or
Are we gonna get a triangle in that? Like
or even if he doesn't, even if there's no like romance between them, even just
mutual
like
understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
No, unlikely allies.
Unlikely
He's
ally.
fine too. I'll take it. Because Lee Rong is like proving himself very much a Loki character right now. Like he's legitimately Loki. He is the half brother who, well, half brother, but brother that nobody wants to talk about. He's adopted. He's just like that character that you love because they are complex, because they have a traumatic backstory, because everything that they've gone through is leading them to have that power moment of redemption where they're like, well, no, I'm gonna do the right thing in this circumstance. Like I hope to see it. And I think that the best relationships always are with those side characters and with sort of like your female lead, because whether or not that develops beyond just platonic whatever, it's nice for her to have allies that are not the male lead, that are sort of like antithetical to his interests as well, because then the balance is out. Like she has two sides. She's the angel and the devil on her shoulder.
Yeah, and it would be interesting if it was developed that he in a way owed her too.
Yes.
I think that
he'll owe her.
Like, I like the idea of her having all the power, and it's about her making decisions that work for her and things like that. So again, agency, power, getting what she wants. These are the things that we typically look for when we're talking about story and drama and things like that. So
what we want specifically from femgaze storytelling too.
Yeah.
Like, really, we don't want stories where we're just observers or like pulled or sucked into things without kind of having any influence over it. We want to be the central character, because guys get that with heroes all the time. We don't get that. Like oftentimes it's just like, oh, you're just kind of living in this world where other things are happening to you. Mm-hmm. No, we're not settling for that stuff in 2020.
No, we've lived with that for the entire time of human history. Yeah. It's time for a change, i.e., nothing is inevitable and nothing is written in stone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though there is fate can be changed. That's what we have already seen in this last episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah, fate's meant to be changed, actually. Like as soon as you speak it, it's like that. I don't know. It's like that observer and observed quality. Mm-hmm. Once it's been observed, it's changed by the observation. So, yeah. We'll have it.
I love it too. Well, thank you everyone for coming out and checking out this deep dive of episodes 5 and 6 of Tale of the Nine-Tailed. We really, really appreciate all of the love and the feedback for us doing this. It really,
thanks for watching.
Yeah,
it's
helps
a lot
us.
Of content to watch.
I know, and we watch it twice because we're insane. We really do love covering the show. We're really enjoying it, and we really have high hopes. It's setting our expectations like really high.
Really high. We'll probably, run through the next 4 episodes in our next thing. And again, like the way that me and MC approach stuff is very metatextual and from a story like analysis perspective. So once we get through that sort of middle arc, right, we're going to be talking about like the transition from the first half of this drama into the next half of this drama.
We might do character analyses and showing arcs and kind of adding to the conversation about what is happening in the story at different stages of the story. But we're very, very excited for the next 4 episodes because it means that we'll be over the midpoint of the season and we'll know directionality of where the episodes are going. And so this 2-week break is kind of nice to us too, because we'll know exactly what these 4 episodes are meant to be. So thank you for sticking with us this time, and also upcoming, and we will of course be back in November to do one of our favorite things, which is cover drink
cover dramas
and cover dramas. Yeah.
Thanks to everyone in chat. I know that you're here every week and like you're just so loyal to us, and obviously we don't like expect to have a lot of people watching, especially since we come out with these right after the episodes come out. Most people aren't on that schedule for drama watching, but like you guys are the reason we do it, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And so Nat, where can people find you if they're looking for you online?
You can of course find me at Ashes for Foxes on Twitter, and then also I am hosting the Meta Machina podcast. That's METAMASHINA. Our Halloween release episode will be on Dracula. I'm very excited for that. We covered the novel and of course Bram Stoker's Dracula, the best adaptation of it. So please give us just even if you don't like want to listen to any specific like podcast for a long period of time, just whatever you like, we have an episode on it. We cover everything. So we appreciate.
And I was on for Hannah Yori Dango if you're interested.
With Marie Claire, and that was a really important episode. It was our first drama episode, and we hope to do some more of that in the future. But of course, it is kind of a time sink. So, but you and I have plans about covering dramas more. We won't talk about them here, but just expect that I'm looking to start doing some long-term projects studying dramas from a personal subjective lens. And I think that we need more people to get into dramas based on the idea that they are really great storytelling, especially femme-gaze storytelling. We've been denied a lot in our life outside of like certain genres like YA or whatever. But yeah.
And this is like a little bit of an aftertalk, but I've been thinking a lot how this is just it's a funny anecdote, but I'm writing, it's like for What the Force, I'm writing about Dadalorian and like the Mandalorian being a dad and why that's really, really important. And through that, I was trying to research more about female power fantasies, because exactly what we hope is happening in this show, the idea that a woman can have power, it could be dark even, and she still is deserving and worthy of love and a happy ending, is a fantasy that many women have and would like to see more in their fiction. And we get that more in Asian dramas than we do in North American media.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just Googling. I'll just Google. And in TV tropes, and TV tropes is, of course, not the best place to look for things, but it is a good indication of how, especially North American media, looks at things. There's something called feminist power fantasy. Mm-hmm. And in it, all of the movies that are listed are written and directed by men.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, men can write and can direct femme gaze. We're not saying that.
We're not questioning that.
It's
That's great.
just that, like, that ain't it, you know? And feminist power is often conflated and confused with the woman being alone.
It's appropriation of traditional male gaze values for heroes, right? Like, I mean, that's the problem, is that, you know, it's the pendulum swing. It's like, okay, we've focused on men, so now we're going to focus on women, but how do we apply the accepted tropes for that kind of hero story to women? Well, let's just focus on them kind of assuming these properties, like traditional masculine properties, in order for them to be seen as powerful or strong. I can wield a sword, I can kill people, I can do this, I can do that. And it doesn't really, it feels very alienating, especially because you can see it happening over and over again. If I mention like who is really a strong female character, I hate that term extremely, but like, you know, you'll get guys like, oh, I really liked Ripley in Alien.
She's literally listed in the TV tropes of as the top, because it's Alien.
Check our Meta Machina episode on the Alien franchise, because the fact that she was written gender neutral and she's originally, you know, supposed to be played by a man, you know, and, you know, there's great things to gender neutrality in this day and age, because honestly, as somebody that, you know, I'm non-binary, I do not ascribe to traditional notions of gender conformity, but gender is, you know, a social construct. It is something that we are continuously learning more about. when we talk about femme gaze, we're talking about the 70s feminist theory that the male gaze in cinema has disproportionately affected our view of how stories should be told, but especially how stories should be told when they feature women.
Mm-hmm.
And we do struggle that we do not have creators or actors or writers or anybody
producers
involved.
The people making
Involved.
decisions, because producers can end up making story decisions. And it ends up like meaning that it doesn't speak to well, my personal subconscious.
Your personal lived experience. Whatever gender or sexuality you are experiencing, like, you know, we just don't have representation, period. And it's just a kind of it's been normalized in many ways, and then the reaction to that has been it's been growing pains, and it will continue to be growing pains. And this is true for any kind of scenario of representation, whether it be queer or including more people of color in these positions as well. Like, you know, the intersectionality of underrepresentation is really important to mention here. So I think the reason, you know, I'm drawn to Asian dramas, and I have been like really getting into them for the past year, and you have helped me with that too, is just the fact that there is, at least at the baseline, women are writing these, and directing these,
from
starring.
A perspective of like stats, I think it's upwards of 85% of all Korean dramas are written by women.
Yes.
That's going to give you you know, a certain framework of gaze that will help. Additionally, even if they're not all from original story, many times they are adapted from originally written works in manga or, you know, comic form. Like, we see a ton of webtoons that are now being turned into dramas that are written by women from the original work perspective. So they're not only written by a woman, but they're transformed into another media with the lens in mind.
Exactly. Like, most Chinese dramas are based on web novels. It's like there's very few original properties. You demonstrate that you have an audience, and then it's, you know, brought into, whether it's brought into donghua, which is like cartoon format, or like into actual drama format, movie format. They're going to market to the audience that they know they have, but they respect the fact that half of their audience is, you know, women. So like, and, you know, women are into many different things, you know, like I look at the popularity of the Untamed as the perfect example, right? You can get this international following of women who are already engaged with like, you know, queer storytelling that hasn't been represented in Western media at all either, not in a positive or interesting way. So the fact that like a C drama can fulfill this need is actually pretty powerful. And, you know, people like who maybe haven't gotten over their sense of reticence about engaging with Asian media, you know, it's just like, it's very easy to get into, because this is all universal storytelling. It's not something where you have to know the language or even really fully understand the culture. It's supposed to introduce you to another part of the world that you probably have been closed off of because of like
assumptions.
What was that quote from?
From Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah.
Who John? Sorry, I'm
I'm just like,
I don't have it in front of me, but it's basically, if once you get past the inch high height of subtitles, a whole world has opened up to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, the idea is like, that's the director and writer of Parasite. The idea is like, Asian dramas are always based on character and humanistic experiences.
Yeah,
and
it's very, we have
it's
a
always
very
emotionality
centric view of things, where we very often, it's fundamentally racist to look at other storytelling and go, oh, well, this isn't going to talk about the human experience.
Yeah.
so messed up. But, you know, honestly, it's what I've encountered a lot, just trying to articulate my love of this medium to other people who don't understand it. You know, like, you do have to learn how to explain and transgress those nasty, unfortunately,
it's assumptions, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think that like people think of themselves as racist, even though everybody is kind of inherently racist or really is inherently racist. Like I think it's just that they assume, oh, this won't be for me because you know,
Yeah.
it's
I think, if you go into it looking
yeah.
for something to hate about it, it's easy to. And I think
Hmm.
oftentimes a lot of people that don't have like the personal lens of like, especially like when I think about femme gaze storytelling, a lot
Hmm.
of people, I'm just going to say all men, but some women too,
Hmm.
close themselves off to this kind of storytelling because they kind of think that it's inherently dumb or stupid or lesser than. And,
Hmm.
obviously that's baked in a lot of internalized misogyny. It's not always internalized misogyny. Sometimes it is truly just dumb, which sometimes that's fine. Like we don't degrade a lot of content made for men because it's dumb, because that's kind of just the point of it, right? It doesn't take itself too seriously. And I
Hmm.
find that in Asian dramas, that is sort of the norm. Like it's a genre that understands its tropes and its place, and it's like most of the dramas that I'm into right now are so self-aware, whether
Hmm.
it be Lost Romance, a Taiwanese drama about an editor stuck in a romance novel, where they're saying these cheesy things, but it's because it's a romance novel.
Hmm.
It leans into the history of this kind of storytelling that we are familiar with, but maybe not other people are. And not degrading it and not talking down to it, but elevating it as something that's truly important to us.
And I see a lot more of this, and there's this great DKDY, or maybe it's a different show. There was a video, and I promised I would find it last week, so I will actually do it this time and actually put it in the liner notes when the podcast comes out and this episode, and tweet it out, etc. But there's this great video on how Asian or Korean dramas have changed Korean romantic culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's become more femme gaze. And so the things that are important to women who watch these dramas have been integrated into the society, and people consider them more.
Yeah. I mean, that's the power of storytelling, I think,
Yeah.
honestly. It's about establishing sort of norms for like what is expected. And it's really kind of sad but true that like when you have less femme gaze storytelling, the norms for what's expected in regards to the treatment of other people, to how we deal with different levels of socialization, or all these different nuanced things end up becoming, sort of considered abnormal versus normal. It's not like fiction affects like reality as much as fiction reflects reality and is allowed to like it reinforce it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, back to kind of like where I was going with this whole like getting you on a rant, which I will wind you up and get you ready to go anytime.
I'm sorry,
I
this is my
no,
thesis statement for
I
life,
just
so
but I just love it, because like what I'm finding is that through my analysis of The Mandalorian and the current media, and even when we have these stories that are being told, it's we have stories like The Mandalorian because men are missing something too,
they're
and they
aging into their 40s and 50s and their dads. That's what I think
but
about.
but being a dad allows them to be sensitive and to be a caregiver and to be
Yes.
caring and
Yeah.
kind and loving and affectionate, and like that's they don't realize that that's what's missing in them, and so they need an excuse, which is becoming a father.
Yeah.
We can see that with the Joe Biden kiss on Hunter Biden's cheek, and how
This is
men,
appropriate father-son activity.
yeah, like men
Yes.
reacted to that, and it's like, well, yes, that is an appropriate father son activity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's truly, we live in a world where if you spend enough time even just accepting that family and love and friendship are actually important things and not weaknesses. They're not to be exploited or to
Hmm.
be or to undermine your path. I mean, this is a very Western view, which I have been
We
very
fight
grateful
against,
to
yeah,
get away from.
yeah.
You know Whether even if it's there's differences in like culture and society when it comes to East Asian dramas based in like a long history and a lot of like much different framework for how you view the worlds and how you interact with it. It's very welcoming to me because you know we do have a lot of stuff that makes a decision to isolate people and to frame their struggles as solitary and
Hmm.
you're the individual rugged American dream kind of situation.
Yeah.
It's like that's not how we survive. and especially not how we survive in crisis situations. In
Yeah.
crisis situations, we have to rely on other people. And we live in a society, we need to have the support and mutual aid of the people around us in order to actually accomplish anything, you know. It's why we've gone, I mean, and this stuff, it won't last in the current environment that we exist within. Like, we had a whole period where we had this very bleak, sad way of viewing the world. You think about like all of the shows that were just so, yeah, they're about solidarity, but they're also about like everything sucks. Like, I think Walking Dead, like, is the first thing I think of, like that period of time where, you know, everything is edgy and dark and
nihilistic.
Sad.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's so draining on the human psyche to experience that in fiction because, you know, even if it is kind of cool and kind of like subversive and interesting, it doesn't give you any sense of like, there's no aspiration to it. There's no reminder that humanity isn't inherently evil or inherently, you know, selfish. We really, like, dramas are good for that because they're based in like, we care about each other and we want each other to succeed. And even if we screw up or make mistakes, we recognize it and actively try to fix that. That's redemptive. It's important for us to have that instead of just this slow nihilistic decline into emptiness. So.
And it dares to question whether things should always be the same. And it's literally every drama is like, hey, you start out at one place and you're not going to be the same at the end, and that's a journey and that's how it's going to be. And so, like, daring the audience to think about your life, your experience, and the world can be a different place if you take action.
Yeah.
Love that. But what can you do to make your life / the world a better place? Educate yourself on the truth and the darkness of things around you, in yourself and in the world. Understand what those shadows are, the truth, you know,
confront your worser natures, like you said.
Your worser natures. Yeah. Like, you know, hey, Canada had eugenics. We had eugenics. You know, learn about that. Learn about the darkness that is in your community. Learn about the darkness that is in your country. Understand it. Learn how these darknesses happen and why they happen. And then create. Paint, draw, write, you know, bake a cake, create something out of the world.
And if you can't do that, support people that do, and especially people that might have experienced any kind of form of systemic oppression or marginalization. Like, that's the most important thing for me in this time and place, is to understand, you know, the historical problems that we have dealt with and where we're at now, and, you know, where do we stand in it? Like, how do we, you know, call in people and make communities happen? Because I honestly think that is our future, is that we have to try and help each other in any way possible. So yeah, which is what we're doing right now. You're helping me get this out. So
yeah, like, you love this show. I wanted to be supportive of that. And we're also using this as a me mentoring Nat experience because she wants to create her own content, and I want to be supportive of that. And if you can support another person who wants to create in a way by giving them time or any sort of love, that's how we make the world a better place. We dare to imagine the world as a different place, and we start to make it happen.
Yep.
Well, that was a very long and drawn out post conversation. I'm Marie Claire Gould. This was Nat Fox. I'm Maurice Gould on Twitter, or What the Force Show if you're interested in Star Wars, or our site, which is now going to be covering more meta on other things that are mythical, femgaze, and meta. Yeah. So
I'm very excited for that.
We will see you back in November, and much love.
Love you so much, everybody.